morning, Dawn.
Good morning, Dave.
My name is Dave Witkovsky. I'm the college chaplain at Juniata College. I'm an ordained minister in the Church of the Brethren, which is a small Protestant denomination. Been ordained in the Church of the Brethren. I was a pastor of a church for about 16 years before I came to Juniata. Made the switch to college chaplaincy at a point in my career and my life where I wanted to work with young people, but in a different capacity than I was. I think probably the most important thing that I do here is to serve as sort of a pastoral presence for the students first, but for the entire campus as people want or need that as well. I think it's probably the establishing of relationships with people that's very key to what I do. My ultimate challenge is to help students discover who they are in relationship to God and the world around them. So the specific programs that we run, the specific opportunities that we give students are really about how do you bring together your faith with your life day to day. Probably some of the key ways that we do that on a week-to-week basis are by giving students opportunity for worship. So Wednesday night footsteps is an opportunity to get together and to worship God and to interact with other people of Christian faith. That's what I think that group really works at. It's kind of the combination of worshiping God and fellowshipping with one another. We also have a series of different kinds of Bible studies that are offered during the week, again to help students put together who they are, their relationship with God, their understanding of how the Bible informs living and thinking about what does that look like in a given week. I think it would be hard to get a really good picture of what I do without some idea of like what goes on in those different groups that we do. It's important for me to not always be busy either, that there's a piece of what I do that just simply requires me to be available. Come on in. In a sense, I have to not be busy sometimes just so that I'm available for a crisis when it comes up or available to help somebody out with something that they didn't expect to have happen. I'm always available for students to do some counseling. I do counseling as students need that, want that from me particularly. Probably the kind of counseling I do the most, though, it has to do with when students find themselves in sort of a bit of a spiritual crisis, so that I offer to listen and then to help them reflect on the questions that they may be having, the struggles that they may be facing in life. I end up spending a lot of time with students who are asking the questions of where do I feel like I'm being called to do after I graduate? So I really try to help them, in a sense, ask the bigger questions as they look at where am I going to go next after I graduate. So I spend quite a few hours in the spring doing that. I also get asked to do a lot of reference letters, those kind of things. I often get asked to be a reference person because I get to see students in leadership roles throughout college. I also do serve as a student academic advisor on campus, and a lot of the administrators do. Again, for me, it's like you have your POE advisor, and they help you work on meeting the requirements of your POE. As a general advisor, I have the opportunity again to be sort of a more supportive kind of advisor. So that's kind of one of the fun parts of my job, is I get to really help students think about, how am I changing? How is then my sense of call changing as I change and grow in college? And so, each piece for me sort of fits back into the other pieces of what I do. And they all kind of funnel back in a way that lets me be this pastoral presence on campus for people when they're struggling with their faith, or when they're asking questions, or when they're looking for answers, that I can be here as a support person and as a resource person and offer them some direction and stuff. Yeah, I pretty much walk on water. I kind of walk about a foot above the ground most of the time. Hover.